Welcome back, friends. We got another video this week, and this time we're going to try something a little different. We're going to do a tournament review of the Warhammer Open in Edmonton. So this is one of the major Games Workshop run tournaments, and if this is something you guys enjoy, I'll maybe do one for any of the major tournaments that happens, LVO, any of the major GW ones and stuff like that. So without further ado, let's get to it. All right, before I get started, we'll do the old YouTube pleasantries. If you liked the video, don't forget to hit the like button. It really helps push it out there for more people to see. And if you really like the video, don't forget to subscribe to make sure you get all my latest videos. All right, so like I said, we're going to do a tournament review for the Warhammer Open in Edmonton. So this tournament had about 250 players. It had 8 rounds, and it's one of the major grand tournaments that Games Workshop runs. I pulled all the data from Best Coast Pairings. I went through and pulled each result from every person, and I compiled the list. And what we're going to do is we're going to go through how the tournament works. We're going to go through the winner and how they won all their games, and then we'll just go over the win percentages and the rep, just see what happened during the tournament. All right, first up is the number of players for Warhammer Open in Edmonton. There's, like I said, 251 players. Games played, there was over 1,900 games played. And the winner ended up being John Lennon from Art of War. He had the Emperor's Children running with Coterie of the Conceited. So here's John's list. The first thing I'm just going to show you guys. So for the characters, he had a Demon Prince of Slaanesh with wings. That was his Warlord. He had another Demon Prince of Slaanesh with wings. He had 2 Lord Excultants. Sorry about the pronunciation there. A Lord Cataphanist, Lucius the Eternal. He had 2 squads of Infractors, 2 squads of Tormentors, 2 Rhinos for dedicated transports, 2 Mauler Fiends, and 3 units of Noise Marines. I will post a full detailed list in the description, so you can check it out down there if you want to see all the war gear and everything that was going on. All right, so here are the tournament pairing rules, just so everyone's sort of familiar with how the tournament works. In the first round, all first round matchups are randomly determined, so everyone just plays someone random. And in subsequent rounds, you play opponents with the same record as you. So as an example, if you won your first game and lost your second game, for your third game, you would also play someone else who won their first and lost their second. This is just generally done to keep similar skill level players together, so the top players who keep winning stay together, and if you keep losing, or winning and losing back and forth, then you'll stick around the same group. So it keeps the games a little bit more competitive. And then after 4 rounds, there's brackets that are made, and they're divided up into 4 different brackets. People with the same record are split into different brackets. And most of the time, generally speaking, you have to be 4-0 to move on to the top bracket for any chance of winning the tournament. There are edge cases where 3-1 will get you in, depending on the results. But generally speaking, 4-0 is where you need to be if you want any chance of winning the tournament. All right, so let's move on and see how John did and how he got all his wins and won the tournament. So we'll call it the road to winning. So for round 1, John and his Emperor's Children, they played Rushin Zhang, sorry about pronunciations there, Tyranids and their Invasion Fleet detachment. So for round 1, the deployment was Dawn of War, and the mission was Linchpin, and the final score ended up being 82-56 for John. So that bumped him on to round 2, where he took on Tyson Doyle, who have Thousand Suns with their Warp Meld pack. For round 2, the deployment was Sweeping Engagement, and the mission was Supply Drop. This round ended with John winning 66-35, so it was a pretty good victory there. And that moved him on to round 3, where he played Sean Ford, the Adeptus Custodes, and the Lions of the Emperor. So round 3 was Hammer and Anvil, and the mission was Purge the Foe. And this ended up being a 93-46. So this was a pretty sound victory for John there. It's one of his best ones of the tournament. And that moved on to round 4, so the final one deciding before they moved on to the brackets. And he played Dan Morris with Thousand Suns Grand Coven, and they did deployment was Crucible of Battle, and the mission was Terraform. And this ended up being 89-60, so another really good victory for John, and that put him into the number 1 bracket, which means he was in contention to win it all. So that was it for the end of day 1, and then we move on to day 2, round 5. He played Liam Bath, Necrons, Awakened Dynasty. Deployment was Tipping Point, and the mission was Take and Hold. And this was 91-72, so it was a little bit closer of a game, just 19 points, but he still pulled out a pretty good victory there. And that moved him on to round 6, where he played Richard Anderson, which is Demonic Incursion from Chaos Daemons. So the deployment was Search and Destroy, and the mission was Scorched Earth. And this was an 82-69 victory here. So this one was even closer. This was only a 13-point victory. So getting a little close there, but he still pulled out the win. And this moved him on to the semifinals, where he played Stu Angel, which with Death Guard, the Virulent Victorium. So They had sweeping engagement for the deployment, and the mission was Terraform. And this was 85-64, so another good victory there for him. And then finally, that moved him on to the finals, where he played Jake Chalmers, another Chaos Demon player with Demonic Incursion. So the deployment was Search and Destroy, and the mission was Hidden Supplies. The final score there was 88-60, which meant John ended up winning the entire tournament. So it was a pretty interesting road there. He played a couple armies a couple different times and had mixed results. He seemed to have his closest game in round 6 there against Richard Anderson. Still a 13-point victory, so a decent amount, not crazy, but for the most part, he won by 20 or more points. So he was never really in jeopardy of losing. Now, I don't have the specific details of when those points were scored, but overall, I think it was a pretty straightforward run for him. Didn't seem like he ran into too many issues. And the last thing we're going to do is we're just going to take a quick look at the win percentages and the Army Rep, just so everyone can get an idea of how all the players at the tournament fared out. So interesting enough, Sisters of Battle and Black Templars actually had the highest win percentage of the tournament, over 60%, and Orcs also had 60%, and it's funny because those are like one of the 3 armies that are at the bottom for the weekly results. And then down at the bottom, you had Aeldari at 40, Space Wolves at 41, Dark Angels at 38, and there was like, I think 1 Death Watch or 2 Death Watch players, but they didn't win any games, so a little bit of a rough go there. So overall, it's a pretty small sample size just for one tournament, but it's just kind of fun to see how each individual army did. Moving on to the representation for the Warhammer Open in Edmonton there. Necrons came in at number 1 with 7% of the players. Thousand Sons and Blood Angels had 6.8. Tyranids had 6, and then we had Space Marines, Death Guard, and Custodies all at 5.6. And then down at the bottom, we had Death Watch and Agents with 0.4, Gene Stealers and Black Templars with 0.8, and then we had Sisters, Dark Angels, and Drukhari, all with 2 players each. So overall, it was actually a little bit more balanced than it normally is player-wise. But again, it's just such a small sample size that it's hard to take too much from it. But it's just interesting to look at what, when this big tournaments come and people play what they're comfortable with, what they bring to the table. Emperor Sterling won. They only had 2.4% of the players. Death Guard, even though they dominate in representation for the last 4 weeks, they were in 4th place for the tournament. A lot of Necron players, a lot of Thousand Sons, surprisingly, with the new codex, and Blood Angels are always popular too. So overall, interesting mix of armies, very different than the weekly results when you combine all the tournaments together. So just kind of something interesting to look at. All right, guys, and that is it. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. If you do like something like this, let me know. I can do more of these in the future. And if there's any other data or any other information for the tournament that you might be interested in, you can let me know in the comments below, and I can maybe add that to the next video. So if you liked the video, don't forget to hit the like button, and don't forget to subscribe to make sure you get all my latest videos. Good luck in the tournaments coming up this weekend, guys, and I'll see you next week.